Who invented toilet paper? The strange history of humanity's cleanest invention. What if I told you that for almost all of human history, toilet paper didn't exist? No soft white rolls. No scented tissues. No three-ply comfort. Nothing. For thousands of years, every civilization had to answer one surprisingly important question. How do you clean yourself after using the toilet? The answers were far stranger, and sometimes far more disgusting, than you might imagine. Some people used leaves. Others used moss. Some wiped with smooth stones. Others reached for corn cobs or even seashells. And in one ancient civilization, hundreds of people cleaned themselves with the very same sponge. It sounds unbelievable, but it really happened. So, who invented toilet paper? Most people assume it must have been a modern invention. After all, paper itself wasn't invented until around 2,000 years ago. Surely people couldn't have been using toilet paper before that. The truth is far more fascinating. To understand the invention of toilet paper, we first need to travel back to a time when simply staying clean was a matter of survival. Imagine living thousands of years ago. There were no bathrooms, no plumbing, no running water. Most people relieved themselves outdoors or in simple pits dug into the ground. And once they were finished, they used whatever happened to be nearby. In forests, large leaves worked surprisingly well. In colder regions, people gathered soft moss. Along rivers, smooth pebbles became nature's toilet paper. On the American continent, dried corn cobs were commonly reused by farming communities. Every region invented its own solution, using whatever nature provided. None of them were particularly comfortable, but they worked. Or at least, well enough. Then came the ancient Greeks and Romans, masters of engineering, builders of roads, aqueducts, and some of the world's first public toilets. Surely they had invented something better. In a way, they had. But what they chose instead would shock almost anyone today. Because one simple cleaning tool was shared by everyone, and nobody thought twice about it. That tool was called the tersorium. It was nothing more than a sea sponge attached to the end of a wooden stick. After using a public toilet, a person would clean themselves with the sponge, rinse it in a bucket of water mixed with salt or vinegar, and then leave it behind for the next visitor. Yes, the same sponge was shared by everyone. Today, that sounds unhygienic, even horrifying. But to the Romans, it was simply the best solution they had. Public toilets weren't private spaces. They were busy gathering places where dozens of people sat side by side, talked about politics, made business deals, and discussed everyday life. Privacy was rare, and sharing a cleaning tool seemed completely normal. Meanwhile, other civilizations found their own answers. In the Arctic, where trees and large leaves were almost impossible to find, some indigenous communities used soft moss, animal fur, or snow. Across parts of the Islamic world and South Asia, many people relied on water instead of dry materials, a tradition that continues for millions of people today. Around the world, there was no single correct way. Every culture adapted to its environment. Then, during the 2nd century AD, an invention in China quietly changed human history. Paper. At first, paper was far too valuable to be used in a toilet. It was reserved for writing, official records, books, and works of art. Throwing it away after a single use would have seemed almost unthinkable. But over the following centuries, China became the world's greatest paper producer. As manufacturing techniques improved, paper became more affordable and more widely available. Eventually, someone had a remarkably simple idea. Why not use paper for personal hygiene? By the 6th century, Chinese scholars were already writing about using paper for cleaning after using the toilet. One scholar even noted that he refused to use paper printed with the names of respected philosophers because he considered it disrespectful. It is one of the earliest written references to toilet paper in history. Then, during the 14th century, under the Ming Dynasty, toilet paper was being produced on an astonishing scale. Historical records describe millions of sheets being manufactured every year for the imperial court, while the emperor and royal family received specially made, extra soft sheets reserved only for them. Long before Europe had even imagined toilet paper, China had already turned it into a luxury fit for an emperor. For centuries, China's invention remained largely unknown to the rest of the world. Across Europe, people continued using whatever they could find. Wealthy families sometimes used soft wool, lace, or pieces of cloth that could be washed and reused. Ordinary people relied on straw, hay, leaves, scraps of fabric, or whatever was cheapest and easiest to obtain. Later, after the invention of the printing press, another unexpected material became incredibly popular. Old newspapers, catalogs, books that were no longer wanted, even pages torn from old almanacs. Paper was finally being used, just not the way we use it today. Then, in 1857, an American entrepreneur named Joseph Gaiety believed he had a better idea. Instead of telling people to use old newspapers, he introduced the world's first commercially marketed toilet paper. His product came as flat sheets infused with aloe and was proudly advertised as a hygienic improvement over recycled paper. He even printed his own name on every sheet. It should have been a revolutionary success. It wasn't. Most people laughed at the idea. Why would anyone pay for something they had always gotten for free? Newspapers arrived every day. Mail-order catalogs were everywhere. Spending money on paper just to throw it away seemed unnecessary, even ridiculous. But the biggest obstacle wasn't the price. It was embarrassment. In the 19th century, talking about the bathroom in public was considered improper. Many shopkeepers refused to display toilet paper openly, and customers often felt too uncomfortable to ask for it by name. Even those who wanted to try it sometimes whispered their request, afraid someone else might hear. Then another invention quietly changed everything. In 1890, two brothers, Clarence and Irvin Scott, introduced toilet paper in a new form. Not as individual sheets, but as a roll. Simple, convenient, easy to store, easy to use. It was such an obvious improvement that, within a few decades, the toilet paper roll began replacing loose sheets in homes across America and eventually around the world. A product that people had once been too embarrassed to mention was slowly becoming an everyday necessity. But toilet paper's greatest success was still waiting in the century ahead. The 20th century transformed toilet paper from a luxury into something most people could no longer imagine living without. As indoor plumbing spread across Europe and North America, modern bathrooms became a standard part of everyday life. Soft, disposable toilet paper fit perfectly into this new world. Manufacturers competed to make it smoother, stronger, and more comfortable, introducing two-ply, three-ply, quilted textures, and even scented varieties. Today, billions of rolls are produced every year. It has become one of the most common household products on Earth. Yet despite its simplicity, toilet paper remains surprisingly different around the world. In many countries, people still prefer water as their primary method of personal hygiene, using toilet paper only for drying or not at all. Others combine both methods. Even today, there is no single universal solution. Looking back, it's remarkable how one everyday object reflects the history of human civilization itself. From leaves and moss to shared Roman sponges. From handmade paper reserved for Chinese emperors to mass-produced rolls found in almost every supermarket. The materials changed. The technology evolved. But the goal remained exactly the same. So, who invented toilet paper? The answer isn't Joseph Gaiety. He created the first commercially sold toilet paper. It isn't the Scott brothers. They popularized the toilet paper roll. The true pioneers were the paper makers of ancient China, who became the first people in history to use paper specifically for personal hygiene more than 1,400 years ago. Their idea quietly spread across the world, evolving over centuries into one of the most ordinary, but essential, products of modern life. It's an extraordinary journey. From forests to royal palaces. From public Roman toilets to the comfort of our own homes. From one of history's most overlooked inventions to something almost every person uses without a second thought. The next time you reach for a roll of toilet paper, remember, you're holding far more than a simple household product. You're holding centuries of human ingenuity, countless cultural traditions, and one surprisingly brilliant idea that changed everyday life forever. Because some of history's greatest inventions aren't the ones that helped us conquer the world. They're the ones that quietly made life a little cleaner, a little healthier, and a little more comfortable every single day.